Good evening. It's a privilege to have the honor to introduce Winona LaDuke this evening. I would like to start with a description used on a website to describe our speaker. Winona LaDuke is one of the world's most tireless and charismatic leaders on issues related to climate change, indigenous rights, human rights, green and rural economies, grassroots organizing, local foods, alternative energy sources, and the priceless value of clean water in a career spanning over 40 years. She is the Executive Director of Honor the Earth and is an Anishinaabe enrolled member of the Mississippi Band of Anishinaabe. She lives and works on the White Earth Reservation in northern Minnesota. Winona founded the White Earth Land Recovery Project in 1989 with the goal of buying back land within the reservation held by non-natives. She served as the Executive Director for over 25 years, and this White Earth Land Recovery Project won many awards, including the 2003 prestigious International Slow Food Award for Biodiversity, recognizing the organization's work to protect wild rice from patenting and genetic engineering. In 1993, she was co-founder of Honor the Earth, where she still serves as Executive Director. Honor the Earth works to raise public awareness and raise and direct funds to grassroots Native environmental groups. This is the only Native organization that provides both financial support and organizing support to Native environmental initiatives. In over 20 years of operations, the organization has re-granted over $2 million to over 200 Native American communities. Winona LaDuke's leadership and vision has led to numerous awards. In 2007, she was inducted into the National Women's Hall of Fame, recognizing her leadership and her community commitment. In 1994, she was nominated by Time magazine as one of America's 50 most promising leaders under 40. In 1996, she was awarded the Thomas Merton Award and the 1997 Ms. Woman of the Year Award with the Indigo Girls. A graduate of Harvard and Antioch University, she's written extensively on Native American and environmental issues. She's a former board member of Greenpeace USA and is presently an advisory board member for Trust of Public Lands Native Lands Program. She is the author of many books, and there are some for sale out in the lobby this evening after the talk, if you're interested. And these books include Recovering the Sacred, The Power of Naming and Claiming, All of Our Relations, Native Struggles for Land and Life, and a novel, Last Standing Woman. She is widely recognized for her writings and speaking on environmental and human rights issues. Her most recent work is the Winona LaDuke Chronicles, Stories from the Front Lines in the Battle for Environmental Justice. In this book, Winona writes, "In the North American First World, tribal communities and First Nations struggle just to survive. In our resilience and beauty, these stories are inspired." Please join me in welcoming Winona LaDuke.
Hello, can you all hear me okay? Ani Nindoi Magadatuk, Nigagagit Magas, Ine Sequay, Go Makwan, Rodam, Gabavani Kagish, Kanagiting, and Dunjibanagush. Thank you very much for the honor of being here today. My relatives, I just want to acknowledge and thank the Ho-Chunk Nation for the territory here that we're on. I'm really pleased to be here, and I got a lot of friends out there. I just was really happy to see Edie and Paul. And Mike Wiggins is here too, and Al Geddix. I known him ever since I was like 4 or something like that. And Julie, thank you for your hard work here, and Bill Green Deer for your hard work also on rights of nature. So just super honored to be here. And today I got to listen to Mari speak. How many of you were there today? That was awesome, wasn't it? That was something really kind of I think she's heading out pretty quick here, but just really brilliant. And the work of the Community Environmental Legal Defense Fund that I do have a relationship to, so it's really an honor to be here. I'm going to do my best. I'm a little worse for where I just came in from Standing Rock. I've been up there quite a bit off and on, and it's a little rough. We'll go with a little rough will be a description, and it's rough. But it's good, it's a good moment in time. It's an epic moment in our history. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about that, but I just want to talk a little bit foundationally on the idea of the rights of nature and Indigenous thinking about what is the law. And I want to say I'm super privileged in that I had an opportunity to visit a lot of Indigenous communities, and Gitchi Debwewen would be maybe the word we would use in Anishinaabe Moan to describe what is the great law in our teachings. The essential thought is really Winona LaDuke is Anishinaabe people. The idea is that is what we seek to attain in our lives, the good life. It's called the good life, Winona LaDuke, the good life. Which I think in kind of modern day vernacular is something like you're hearing coming out of gross national happiness indexing. If you're what I'm saying in Bhutan, or the question of what is the quality of life in relationship to GNP. And more countries on a worldwide scale are saying that quality of life is not related to level of militarization or level of consumption. And perhaps quality of life is related to, and when you look at the indicators, the quality of life is indicated by things like the quality of your relationships, if you have access to water, if you have access to an ecosystem that is yours, if you have security in your home, if the quality of life for women and children is of high value to your community. That is what generally it is found that quality of life indicators are. And one of the elements that I think that we need to work on is re-indexing in the United States, and in fact re-indexing in our own native communities, because often we're looking at indicators that have nothing to do with our values. And so, I think that is really what this Minopamata is in terms of this social practice and public policy. But in terms of more of a legal framework that would beckon, I would say that there are some elements that we have as an understanding as Anishinaabe people or as other Indigenous people which reflect those set of teachings. And the first is, I would say, is Gitchi Debwewen, or the idea that the Creator's law is the highest law, higher than the laws made by nation states or municipalities. And one would do well to live in accordance with the Creator's law. Another teaching that I believe we have is the idea of an animate world. And I believe this was discussed some today, but even in our language, Anishinaabe Moan and a lot of other Indigenous languages, many of our nouns are animate. And so I've always wondered and understood the profound thinking that has in our language a sin, the word for stone is an animate noun in our language, indicating that is a being that has standing, that has power, that has spirit unto itself. And that valuation, I believe, is essential to how you make a society, and a civil society that reflects and reaffirms the values. Because indeed, the laws that we create as nations should reflect the values of sustainability of our nations. A third basic construct, I would say, is in most Indigenous societies, and I always have to kind of give a little bit of a aside on this, because this is not just about Native people in North America. Everybody's Indigenous to some place. It is just that people got further lost and removed from those teachings over time. And Indigenous societies on a worldwide scale retain many of those values in spite of 500 years of colonialism. We still understand these things, although we struggle in this time, in this day and age. But in that there's this teaching of cyclical thinking. And in our Anishinaabe Moan, our time now, Benakweo Gizis, which is when the leaves are falling moon, is what we would call this time now. I have no ability to speak Ho-Chunk, so I have no idea how y'all call it, but probably some similar set of teachings. But Benakweo Gizis, Gashkadno Gizis is what's coming up. That's a freezing over moon, is what that's called. And then there's a Manaju Gizis Suns, Gitchi Manaju Gizis, the little spirit moon and the great spirit moon, the Mayabina Gizis, that's the moon that follows that, that's Sucker moon. And then you got Wunabana Gizis, which is the hard-crusted snow moon, kind of around March when it freezes and thaws, and we all know that, yeah? Also known as the moon you don't want to do a face plant in the snow. Our maple syrupy moon follows that, and then our Wabakana Gizis, our moon for the flowers, and then you have Odamina Gizis, a strawberry moon, Mean Gizis, a blueberry moon, Winona LaDuke our wild rice making moon. Those are the Watabaga geesis is when your leaves change color. So that is, I say that because I think that I would hope that some of you are familiar at least with the indigenous languages and the land upon which you live. Because there is an essential nature of understanding the relationship between place and language. But also, I always like to use our language when it can, but I think more than that, those moons reflect place. They reflect place in a cyclical way of living and an understanding of the world as a cyclical world that is reaffirmed in our cultural practice. But it is also, I always like to say those moons because I don't know if any of you noticed, but none of those moons is named after a Roman emperor. Did y'all get that? It's possible to have an entire worldview that has nothing to do with empire. You'll be okay. I just want to let y'all know it's okay. Just let that stuff go. It's like way too much to drag around. Just want to say, it's like this question of a paradigm shift. That's what it really is. It's like if you're carrying around all those bags, it's really hard to shift your paradigm because it's really heavy to carry. And you're trying to justify everything in that paradigm you're carrying around, which is really some excessive baggage. So this idea of cyclical thinking, the moons, the tides, our bodies, those are all cycles. Natural world is cyclical. Then the idea of anthropologists call it reciprocity. I always like anthropologists, they always have some big name for everything, But what that means, I think, in our teachings is, as you see indigenous people, there's always this ethic of you always offer a prayer of gratitude when you harvest, or when you take something, or when you have a feast, or just to be prayerful because everything is a gift from the Creator and from the natural world. And then within that, there is a certain ethic which is really this ethic of you take only what you need and you leave the rest. You take only what you need and you leave the rest. And that's an essential ethic of a legal paradigm too, which is a human management practice, which is, it is totally, not accurate to say just a sustainable harvest in fisheries. It is actually how do you sustain an ecosystem, as the ethics of that. And I'll talk a little bit about that later on, but I'm saying these are tenets that you need in a legal system that is based on natural law, or is based on the rights of nature. Perhaps the fifth is the idea of Ndinwe, which is a Anishinaabe word, but it is a common word and a phrase, which is we are all related. We are related. Whether we have wings or fins or roots or paws, we are related. We are all relatives. In fact, we're all like 99.9% the same, which I always think, must really have, been a bummer for those white supremacists when they figured that out. And it's like, oh man, it's all pretty much the same, we're all pretty much the same. But, we're all related, we're all relatively related. And then perhaps the final teaching, that is within this Minopamana Zealand, of this code, that is an essential code, I believe, of the natural law, is the idea of in each deliberation, consider the impact upon the seventh generation from now. Because the decisions we make today are really, going to affect it way ahead. And so I think those are really basic tenets of the Creator's law and how they are applied in public policy. And what I want to say is that I'm going to talk a little bit more about that, and I'm not going to go into the whole how industrial society doesn't abide by those. Did y'all get that memo? Y'all got that memo pretty much, like things are not working out with the legal, right? So we don't need to go through that whole thing, but I just want to say that, and I'll discuss it in like some specifics later, but I'm not a lawyer by training, I'm an economist. I spent a lot of time studying economics and, Harvard and MIT too, and, I went to school with them all. I got it. Took the notes, did pretty good in school, but, what I know is, so I look at things perhaps in a different framework, but, in our conference earlier today, we were talking about the need for a paradigm shift. And that paradigm shift is in legal institutions and it's in economic institutions. It's in how we relate to the world. It's in how we relate to the world. And we are the ones that are going to have to do that. Because this is a generation when, in our prophecies, it is said that as Anishinaabe people, we have a choice between two paths. One path, they say, is well-worn, but it is scorched. The other path is not well-worn and it's green. And it'd be our choice upon which path to embark. And so, You know, I've spent much of my life fighting stupid projects. You know, I'm 57. You know, I really like to just kind of grow some cool corn, you know, hang out. I got some new squash. I was just out at the Mandan, and I was in the regular territory, and they gave me some really cool squash. I was like, I'm ready, let's do that. You know, I like to do cool things, but I spend an inordinate amount of time battling really stupid projects, you know, because it is the same paradigm, you know, and so I've spent my life, you know, I started as a young woman in the 1980s fighting uranium mining, you know, and you know, and algetics was a big influence on me as a young woman, but, you know, I mean, multinational corporations coming in with big uranium mines on the Navajo reservation, 44 uranium mines, 10 uranium mills, 5 coal-fired power plants, 4 coal strip mines. Wow, that sounds fabulous, huh? You know, meantime, 85% of those people's houses had no electricity. That's a snapshot of colonialism in America. You know, because this is all about that, too. This is all about that. And so we spent a lot of time trying to stop the uranium mines coming in, and we joined with movements across the country, some here in Wisconsin, elsewhere to battle new nuclear power plants, to battle the Kool-Aid that was passed out by the electrical industry that, you know, so cheap you wouldn't have to meter it. You know, it's all good, it's all good. It's all good in the hood with nuclear energy. It was not, you know. And so I spent a lot of time going to hearings and working in the community, and we stopped uranium mining at Navajo at the time. You know, but that was a long battle. You know, and we closed it down because a lot of nuclear power plants in this country were closed down at the same time. A lot of them, I always like those pictures of those mothball plants, you know. And Zoltan Grossman, a friend of many of us, was just posted something on his Facebook. I was getting a kick out of it, but he has up there. But it was like a picture of Satsop. I don't know if y'all remember this nuclear. It was called Washington Public Power and Supply, Washington State. It's a really bad acronym, really. Whoops. Whoops. It's an acronym for their you know, nuclear power program, you know, whoops. I was like, really, guys, like bad choice on the naming there, you know. And so they had it out there, and they had this new plan for 5 new power plants, and, you know, it never worked out for them. And so they have like mothball power plants sitting up there. They had like all that concrete, a big dome and everything like that. So I was driving by that one time with one of my friends, and I pick up the paper, and the paper says they're trying to figure out what to do with their nuclear power plant shell that they had never used, you know, like that repurposing of a nuclear power plant shell thing. So they had 2 choices, and one was a jail, and the other one was a shopping mall. I said, that is so funny, that is so America. You know, let's just go shop at the old nuke, you know? It's like crazy stuff, man, it's like crazy stuff we got. But anyway, so, you know, I don't know if they're still contemplating that up there, what they should do with that. You know, I thought they should do what Ralph Nader did, my running mate, which is, you know, Museum of Torts. You know, I thought you should have like a museum of bad ideas. You know, put it here in the nuclear power plant, right? You know, it's right there with a Dalcon shield and an exploding gas tank, and it's like a lot of bad ideas. We should just like have a museum of bad ideas, you know? It's a bad idea. So, you know, because I mean, that's the thing, is like people forget, you know, like how crazy it is. But, you know, what I learned from that is that you can fight a lot of things, and you can stop them. You can stop them, but you got to keep fighting. And their projects are so expensive. You know, and Paul Domain knows that as the longer you fight them, the less likely they are to hold on to their shareholders and their investors. You know, which is what we're learning in the pipeline fight. So, fought the mines, but one of the things is that we fought the mines and we didn't change the level of consumption. That's what my little argument is about. This is that you got to shift the paradigm, but you also got to shift the paradigm on how we live. You know, because if you live in a society which wastes 57% of the energy between point of origin and point of consumption, which is what our super first world system of inefficiency does, serves the power companies really well. You know, they can just keep producing and we can keep paying for it, and it's pretty much hemorrhaging out from, you know, really archaic coal generating facilities. Like, how old is that damn thing in Ashland, Wisconsin? Y'all let me know on that thing. That was like some dinosaur. Right? That's like a 50-year-old plant or 60-year-old. There's one plant in northern Minnesota that's older than my mother. You know, my mother is in robust shape, but she's not a coal generator. You know, you shouldn't have an 83-year-old coal generating station that you're trying to pretend is still working. So then you end up with where we're at. You know, where the legal institutions, you know, on one hand, you could say that the laws have been eclipsed by the violence of society. You know, to the extent that the laws, you know, so we'll start with one, the laws were flawed to start with. You know, based on things like the papal bulls and, you know, other, you know, colonial privilege. We'll go with that description. You know, you got that problem to start with. When you got laws that say that some people don't deserve to live and are second-class citizens or aren't fully human, and others are, particularly people from Europe, you know, that's one thing that's not going to work out over the long haul. But then the second thing is like that the laws themselves have been eclipsed by the violence of our society. And I first heard this discussed when I was at the United Nations about 20 years ago, and this woman, she was talking about how, you know, the regulatory framework of even the international laws, no one had captured, like, you know, when you talk about genocide, how do you explain intergenerational genocide of nuclear radiation? Like, in what legal framework was that? You know, there was not a legal framework for the violence that we have created. You know, the violence that we have created didn't have a legal framework. And so the laws are behind what the technology is, which is still where we're at. You know, fracking is a perfect example of that. We had no idea what we were doing, and no regulatory framework. So that, you know, the systemic problems, the laws exceeded by the violence of society, foundationally flawed, and then finally, the situation where we're at today, which, you know, I would assume, well, maybe I should make the assumption, but the fancy term for it is called regulatory capture, which is when corporations write all your laws. That's kind of where we got to today, you know. And we could act as if that it is not true, but I'm going to just talk about the little case study that I'm dealing with at Standing Rock, okay? So, to give you a little bit of a background, you know, I told you that I spent a lot of time fighting stupid projects. I spent the past 4 years of my life fighting some Enbridge pipelines, right? Wasn't my plan. My plan was to, like, you know, market wild rice, put up some wind turbines, a little solar, grow some cool food, ride my horses. That was a great plan. Does that sound like a great plan? That's like what Mike Wiggins is living right now. I just had to do that, Mike, you know. I was teasing him about his fabulous life. And, you know, so then one day, you know, I keep having this recurring dream, and my dream is that is about the Keystone Pipeline. It's these pipelines that's coming our way, and I was like, I don't know how to fight pipelines. I spent my time fighting individual projects. What do I do with a pipeline, you know? Kept having this, like, recurring dream. And as the dream was that we had to ride our horses against the current of oil. So I dreamed that about 4 years ago. I went out to Pine Ridge and I was talking to my friends. I said, you know, I think that's about the Keystone XL pipeline. So I think you should ride your horses against the current of oil. You know, it's super funny. A lot of people, non-native people, so you don't know how funny it is to have an Ojibwe woman tell a Dakota person what to do. It's like totally impossible. I was like, you know, I was thinking you might try this, you know. They're just all really cool about it. They're like, good sister, we'll talk about that, lots of prayers, you know. So, you know, they said, good, we'll talk about that. I says, good. I says, I go home my reservation and waiting for them. I'm like, I'll help you do your press. I'll help you get some stuff organized, you know. And I said, just let me know anytime now, like this, you know. And I was waiting and I didn't hear nothing for long. And then all of a sudden they announced this damn pipeline called Sandpiper. And they went across the northeast corner of my reservation, next to the single largest wild rice bed. The only organically certified wild rice bed in Minnesota, and I think it is the largest wild rice bed in Minnesota. It's pretty, you know, significant. It's called a traditional cultural property, you know, our most significant, you know, and for our people. And I was looking around, I was like, dang, you know, that's not gonna work out. And then I'm looking around, I'm like, hey, who's got this? And I was like, dang. You know, I said, I guess I gotta go brush off my, you know, bad guy fighting outfit and go back out there, you know. I was like, all ready for retirement. That's so damn bad. And then, you know, so I started doing our work, which is, you know, I go out and first I inform our people because, you know, I believe in informed consent. When people should actually know what's happening, not just drink the Kool-Aid and write, you know, put their thumb mark on something, you know, which is what 90% of all regulatory officials seem to do in this day and age. You know, just go ahead and do it because someone said that's a good idea. I was like, that's a really bad idea. You should actually know, like, you know, what's their spill ratio? What's the history of the corporation? Where's this? How many barrels per day? Where's it coming from? Where's it going? Like, important thoughts. You know, important thoughts for regulators. So I started working on trying to inform our people about that and got more and more vexed with the Enbridge Corporation. and single largest pipeline company in North America. And then next thing I know, I'm on, then I'm trying to get non-Indian people of northern Minnesota involved, and a lot of them are probably your relatives, so mostly like Lutherans, Norwegians, Germans. My plan was to get the Norwegians mad, see if they start taking it up, and we did. We got them going on it. A lot of them are kind of awkward. Like, so a lot of like the, extraterritorial treaty rights, the Floyd decision, the Mille Lacs decision, the 55, 54. There's like tensions that exist in northern Minnesota over this. I was like, guys, we gotta work together on this. We gotta work together because it's pipelines crossing everybody's territory. We all gotta drink the water, So, I show up a few meetings and there was that awkwardness, when you show up and they're like, oh, the Indians are here. And I was like, we gotta work on this. I'm just saying, that's what it's like. When you show up. And I have to say, I've been in a lot of uncomfortable situations and I'm like, time to get together, guys. So, I started working on that, and then meantime, I went out and bought myself a horse trailer, and my kids are like, Mom, you don't even have a truck to pull the horse trailer. I was like, well, what's going to happen? The creator of Craigslist will provide me all answers. So that's what I did. And I put my horse trailer on Craigslist and my truck on Craigslist, and I'm good, go. And next time, and then those Dakotas call me back and say, of course, they wait till the last minute and say, yeah, we're going to ride the pipeline. I said, well, we're going to ride first. So I started riding these pipelines. And, I'm a horsewoman with little age. Like, I like to ride, but nothing like my Dakota brothers and sisters. I'm like, I can ride, okay? So I started riding, and I summed up every Ojibwe I knew, which was like not that many on the riding department. So we started riding, and so for 4 years we rode that proposed route. We also rode the Keystone XL route. And I'd have to say is that I went to every regulatory hearing. I was like high-fiving Ambridge on the way in by the time I got there. We was on such close terms. It's like, hey guys, you there? Hey, how's it going? How's that pig doing? You guys know what a pig is? Pipeline inspection gauge? Pipeline inspection gauge is called PIG. That's their main mechanism of protecting you as a pig. Just want to let you know, in case you're wondering what the protection thing is, called PIG. Pipeline inspection gauge. So I was like, how's pigging these days? That's the kind of stuff you can ask when you're chums with Ambridge. I could say, how's that? I was wondering about pigging up there. But anyway, they just get really vexed at me, because I, give them some heck, and I go in there. But, they take themselves way too seriously. Because it is pretty ridiculous, their whole proposal. That cathodic shield. You guys would follow the cathodic shield? That's like a cloak of invisibility that protects you from pipelines corroding. The cathodic shield. I was like, the cathodic shield? How's the cathodic shield these days, guys? So you guys gotta get to know this. I'm like pipeline trivia queen at this point. 4 years into it, I know all about all kinds of stuff, We're gonna, actually I was trying to have a competition between Honor the Earth and 350.org, pipeline trivia. Pipeline Jeopardy. That's what it calls it. So if y'all want to do it, I'm trying to set it up, but stay tuned, because we think you're doing it in some bars. You know what I'm saying? So you could drink and try to pay pipelines. Y'all up for this. You're from Wisconsin, right? This is like the kind of thing y'all do, right? All right. Oh, I know it's supposed to get a formal lecture, but there's so many fun things you can do in this process. But anyway, so I go to these hearings, and I did due diligence in the process. And in due diligence in the process, we had to face the state of Minnesota that did not want to consult with tribes. They didn't feel that was necessary. Got this governor's executive order that says you have to talk to tribes. And then, the Department of Commerce is like, no, we're exempt from that. And I'm like, good luck on that. And so then we held our own hearings. We said, you guys are not fit to hold hearings. We're going to hold our own hearings because you show the example that you are unfit in the process because you got the Department of Commerce regulating this and they have no experience. You guys don't even know what you're doing, And so we pushed them. We pushed the system. And I think a lot of people in here get, the gist of my discussion here is that if you want to stay in the box, good luck on that. Because the box is not going to work out for us. If you want to stay in the box that society puts you in, either politically, economically, or in a paradigm, we're going to perish, basically. Because the box is not going to work out. So I'm like, the rules that you got, that's not working for us. And our tribe decided we should take jurisdiction over this. And so that's what we did. We pushed them, kept pushing them. And some pals of ours at the Friends of the Headwaters, they filed a lawsuit saying that they had to do a full environmental impact statement on that pipeline. And that was really vexing to Ambridge in the state of Minnesota. They were like, they had to go through this whole thing. They appealed it twice. The state of Minnesota appealed being forced to do an EIS. I was like, you guys, this is not 1930 when you get to burn us out of our villages, which is what they did to our people. This is not 1930. This is 2016. And it's not going to happen again. You know, which is, you know, where we're at. And so we pushed them. We pushed them. And we finished our ride this summer, our fourth ride on the pipeline. It was a prayer, you know, praying. We rode in a fourth ride. We finished in, right after Bill and Julie finished their walk across Wisconsin on the proposed route, or the Route 66 there. But I finished our ride, and one day after we finished our fourth horse ride on the proposed Enbridge route, they announced the cancellation of Sandpiper. That's all I want to say. I want to say that, you know, there's a lot of things that make change. Keep your spiritual practice strong. Keep your faith strong. And work like hell in the system and work like hell out of the system. You know, because you got to change the paradigm that they're in. You know, and that's what I know is that how that happened. But, you know, what I know is that, you know, we defeated the pipeline, and then they announced, Enbridge announced that they purchased 1/3 of Dakota Access Pipeline, which is the one that crosses the Standing Rock Reservation. It's proposed to cross just north of Standing Rock. So, I thought to myself, you know, like probably all you would have thought, you know, I was like, geez, I thought someone had that one. You know, I thought someone was on that. I was busy here, you know, hope y'all have that. And I was like, good luck. And I was like, no, it's not going to work. I got to go out there. So I have recalibrated my entire schedule in my organization. I have 2.5 people out there at Standing Rock. Paul Dominguez on my board. He approved it, right? Okay. You know, what are you going to do? You're in a national organization and you're looking at this epicenter of a pipeline battle that just moved west, and they are, you know, we're not prepared for that. We're not prepared for that. And so, you know, I gave Enbridge some heck over that. I actually told Enbridge that I felt like they cheated on us. You know, because for 4 years, the Enbridge company told us that the essential route was from Clearbrook to Superior, the only possible route for their fracked oil pipeline was from Clearbrook to Superior. They needed that route. I know that they say those things to y'all too. It's kind of like if like one guy is dating 5 women and he tells them all different stories. I said, you guys cheat on us. Here, you told me that was the route you needed, and now you jumped over there to North Dakota. So I said to him in a meeting, I said, so how's it going in North Dakota, guys? And then so I looked down and I said, yeah, you didn't think it was going to go on, did you? I said, no. So I said, good luck, guys. So then I moved out there, you know. I've been out there, I just come from there, you know, this morning. I left this morning early, around 4:30 or something like that, some really super early time. And so what we're seeing right now out in North Dakota is really an intersection of social and legal and economic and ecological crises. That's what you're seeing. And, you know, I wasn't prepared. And, you know, I'm coming out there doing a quick study on it, but I'm just going to tell you kind of what I'm thinking about this, because it's something that a lot of us are seeing, you know, out there. And what I want to say is that, you know, how you know that you got a problem in civil society, and it's not the first time you have this problem, but when you have a mine-resistant anti-personnel carrier on a dirt road in North Dakota, you got a problem. You got a problem. You know, when you got all those automatic weapons, oh, that's right, those 35 officers from Wisconsin, right? I was like, your governor is just hateful, huh? That was like crazy, you know, because like, you know, North Dakota is like a pariah. It's a pariah, but you know, I was like, wow, Wisconsin, you know, a lot of other people wouldn't send their cops out there, but Wisconsin, you betcha. So I didn't actually see like the Dane County Sheriff out there, but I seen a lot of other sheriffs. I was like, I didn't know this was West Fargo. You know, it's like right out there in the middle of the reservation. And so when you see that, you know, you got a problem. This is not the first time we've seen that, because I've been watching it. I mean, you guys had it up there in the battle on GTAC. You had 7 automatic weapons trained on you, right? You know, and then I seen it about a year before up in New Brunswick. And I see the Indian man, a Mi'kmaq man, standing in a field with a sniper pointed at him. You know, and I was like, that to me marks a crisis in civil society. When you've got weapons trained on people, whether they're Canadians or Americans or Indigenous people in North America. Like, I feel like I didn't sign up for that. I inherited living in this first world country that's supposed to have some semblance of human rights and civil rights. I'm not living in Palestine. I'm trying to be living in the north here. And you have a crisis of civil society when the rights of humans, rights of nature, are so subsumed to the rights of energy corporations. But that's where we got to. So a little bit of how we got to that. And I already talked to you about the inefficiencies. I've already talked to you about the economic inefficiencies that cause this. I think that you all got a sense that, basically our system is so addicted to oil that what happens is at a certain point in this addiction, a bunch of addicts don't make good decisions. That's what's going on. You got an addicted society, so it spends all its time hanging out with dealers, which is what your government's doing. And when you hang out with dealers, you make a lot of bad decisions that dealers want you to make. And so you end up, to feed your addiction, you end up in this crazy, crazy final stages of your addiction, which is what's called extreme extraction. That's where we're at now, extreme extraction. Extreme extraction, in terms of mining, is what you were seeing up there at GTAC. There's these proposals in Wisconsin, like the bottom of the barrel. It's not like there wasn't copper hanging out on the shore of Lake Superior when all your folks came over. Giant boulder, the Ontonagon boulder, 2,500-pound copper. Now that's some easy stuff to get. The stuff they're going after now for like copper mining is so bottom of the barrel. It's like the single most inefficient mining process in history and in the world, except for gold. That's the bottom of the barrel. When you're scraping so deep that you would destroy everything just to get those little flakes. Little flakes. Super energy inefficient, super inefficient destruction of water, ecosystems. I'm saying that's addict behavior. When you're scraping up your fix like that. That's what we got. When you're scraping up your fix in your oil and your fossil fuels, and how you scrape up your fix in your oil and fossil fuels is you blow off the top of 500 mountains in Appalachia and act like that's like normal behavior to change the geography. Or you drill 20,000 feet under the ocean, hope that's going to work out for you. My position is 20,000 feet under the ocean is where the mermaids live. That's where they should be. And the things that are in the deep, they should be in the deep. We shouldn't be down there. That's their world. Shouldn't go down there. It's like the boundaries that humans have to live within. As the Creator didn't put us 20,000 feet under, so I don't think that's our place. Let's just stay in our little place, right? And it don't work out when you got that deep water. That's sort of endangered species. He was like sliding him off to me like that. I was like, Randy? I said, there's the white man's laws and there's the Creator's laws. And those laws make no sense. There's sturgeon in our ecosystem. They belong here. They were violated, they're taken out. Our people lost them because our sturgeon clan has no relatives. And my sturgeon people are sad because we lost our relatives and we want them back. I said, so I'll put them in a lake, and I already did anyway, by the way. So then he goes, and a couple weeks later, he's like up researching, and I find out he's doing all this research. And now my tribe has one of the largest sturgeon restoration programs in the region. Hundreds of thousands of sturgeon, and the result is we go like this every year. And every year my family goes out there, and then, my first grandchild was born 10 years ago. His birthday was 2 days ago. I said, my first grandchild was born 10 years ago, and you know what clan that kid was? It was sturgeon. That's cool, huh? That's cool. That's how the Creator does things, So I said, hey, when he was born a little dude, I says, and we go out there now, and I says, there, see what Granny got you? And she's religious, right? So it's good, and it's but it's this process where we reaffirm our relationship to our relatives. And you cannot let them, keep them. But I also did not bring the sturgeon back to have them run a pipeline across that same territory. That's that responsibility you have to your relatives, And so I take that seriously. So I tell you that's the difference, and I stick to that. Sometimes people get their feelings hurt when I say there's a white man's law and the Creator's law, but that is it. If you have a regulatory system that is run by a bunch of corporate criminals, you cannot tell me that's the law. You cannot tell me that's justice. And out there in North Dakota, or Standing Rock, we're called protesters. I'm like, you guys are criminals. You're terrorists. You're trying to destroy our water. You don't call me a protester. I'm protecting that which is of value. So, it's a moment. We're all in it. I'm going to leave you with a quote. When I was, a couple of years ago, I was with my friends, Thunder Valley Community Development Corporation. Thunder Valley Community Development Corporation on Pine Ridge. Remarkable work, Nick Tilson. So I was reading their annual report and I was like, man, that's cool. And I've come across this quote there. There's that call up Nick. I says, Nick, can I use this quote? It's too cool, can I use this quote? He's like, Auntie, I gotta tell you where it's from. So he says, this is what he tells me this story. He says, a couple years ago, there's a bunch of us Lakota men was in a sweat lodge. He says, we was in a sweat lodge, and in that sweat lodge, we, was all complaining around before we got started and whining around about who did what, and tribal council did this, and, talking smack. But for all of you who are non-Indian people, I don't want you to think that Native people do that ever. There's been a bunch of crybabies basically in there, so what's going on? He says, he was down there complaining around, and I said, wait, then we got going on that sweat. The spirit came into that sweat lodge. And so he said, the spirit came into that sweat lodge. The spirit spoke to us. He said, Albert, he said, this is what the spirit said. The spirit said, how long are you going to let others determine the future for your children? Are we not warriors? When our ancestors went into battle, they didn't know what the consequences were going to be. All they knew was that if they did nothing, things would not go well for their children. Don't operate out of a place of fear. Operate out of a place of hope. Because with hope, everything is possible. Time is now. Movement's here. Miigwech, thank you for your time.